Elias Vance had always believed his mind was an ordinary one. He was a human naval commander, trained for discipline, survival, and command under pressure. He knew how to keep fear locked away and how to focus when everything around him broke apart. That was what humans called strength. Nothing about it had ever seemed special to him. That belief ended the moment the telepathic alien gasped. The station floated in silent orbit above the blue-white world of Kael'thar, a place where thought mattered more than speech. The station itself was smooth and curved, grown rather than built, its walls faintly warm as if alive. Elias walked through the corridor under escort, his boots sounding too loud in the quiet. The aliens around him did not speak. They never needed to. They were tall and slender, with pale silver skin and eyes like polished glass. Their heads were slightly larger than human norms, their movements slow and careful. Every one of them was a telepath. Every one of them could hear each other's thoughts as easily as breathing. And every one of them avoided Elias. He could feel it in the way they leaned away from him, the way their eyes flicked toward him and then quickly away. To them, a human mind was noise, static. A storm of random images and emotions they did not want anywhere near their shared mental space. That was what the briefing had said. Humans are mentally loud, the diplomat had warned Elias before departure. They are not dangerous, but they are uncomfortable. Do not attempt mental contact. Think as little as possible. Elias had nodded and agreed, though the idea still felt strange. How was a person supposed to think as little as possible? The escort stopped outside a wide chamber. The door opened without a sound. Inside, several telepaths stood in a loose circle around a raised platform. At its center stood Lyrathi. Elias did not know her name yet, but the moment he saw her, his attention fixed on her without effort. She looked different from the others, smaller, more fragile somehow. Her silver skin carried faint patterns like ripples on water, and her eyes were darker, deeper, as if they held too much. She was focused inward, her hands slightly raised, her posture tense. Elias realized she was working, deeply connected to the station's telepathic systems. Someone spoke aloud for the first time since he had arrived. "This is Lyrathi," the alien liaison said in careful, accented English. "She is a high-sensitivity receiver. Do not approach. Do not focus on her." Elias swallowed and nodded. Understood. He stayed near the wall, doing exactly as instructed. He did not speak. He did not move. He tried to empty his mind, but the human brain did not work that way. As minutes passed, his thoughts drifted despite his effort. He wondered how someone like Lyra could stand under such constant pressure. He wondered what it felt like to hear so many minds at once. He wondered if she ever felt lonely in the middle of all that noise. For a brief moment, he imagined what it would be like to be seen clearly by someone who could hear everything. The effect was immediate. Lyrathi gasped. The sound tore through the chamber like a physical shock. She staggered backward, her hands flying to her head as if struck. Her breath caught sharp and painful, and she collapsed to her knees. Every telepath in the room reacted at once. Minds flared. Panic rippled outward in waves Elias could not see but somehow felt. Several aliens turned sharply toward him, their eyes wide with alarm. "What did you do?" one demanded aloud. "I didn't do anything," Elias said, stepping forward before thinking better of it. "I swear." Lyra let out a shaky breath, her eyes lifted, locking onto his. For a heartbeat, the entire station seemed to hold still. Then Lyra fell forward, unconscious. Security moved fast. Elias barely had time to react before invisible force fields locked around him, pinning him in place. He raised his hands slowly, heart pounding. "I didn't touch her," he said again, louder this time. "I didn't even speak." The liaison's face was pale. "Your thoughts," they said quietly. "You focused." That made no sense. Elias opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. The room was filled with fear, not anger, fear of him. Lyra was carried away by medical attendants. The telepaths avoided looking at Elias now, as if even meeting his eyes was dangerous. Within minutes, he was escorted to an isolated chamber deep in the station, far from any telepathic networks. The door sealed behind him. The room was small and bare. Smooth walls, no windows. No sound. It reminded Elias of containment cells he had seen on hostile worlds, except this one was built from fear rather than steel. He sat on the edge of the platform bed, running a hand through his hair. "What the hell just happened?" he muttered. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt strange without reference. Finally, the door opened again. Lyrathi stood there. She looked weaker than before, her posture careful, her steps slow. There were no guards with her, only a faint shimmer of energy around her body like a protective barrier. Elias stood at once. "Are you okay?" The question slipped out before he could stop himself. Lyra flinched slightly, then steadied. Her eyes studied him with intense focus, as if she were looking at something dangerous and beautiful at the same time. "Yes," she said softly, her voice was almost a whisper. "I am functional." "I'm sorry," Elias said. "I don't know what I did." She stepped closer, then stopped just short of the barrier's edge. Her breathing was shallow. "You thought of me," she said. Elias blinked. "I what?" "When your attention settled on me," Lyra continued, choosing her words carefully, "your mind did not scatter, it did not drift. It narrowed." She pressed a hand lightly to her chest. "It was quiet, clear, focused. It felt like being held." Elias stared at her, stunned. "That knocked you out." Her lips curved into something almost like a smile, then quickly faded. "It overwhelmed me." No telepath has ever felt such directed intent from a non-telepath. "So humans are dangerous now because we think too hard?" Elias asked, trying to inject humor into his fear. Lyra shook her head. "Not because you think, because you care." Silence filled the space between them. "The Council believes your mind is a threat," she said. "They have classified you as a mental hazard. You are not to be allowed near active telepaths again." Elias exhaled slowly. "That bad, huh?" "Yes," Lyra said, then after a pause, "but they are wrong about why." She hesitated, then lowered the barrier slightly. The air between them seemed to thrum. "When you think of me," she said, "the noise fades, the pain fades. For the first time in my life, I felt alone with one mind, not lost, not drowned." Elias felt something tighten in his chest. "Lyra, I didn't mean to." "I know," she said quickly. "That is what makes it worse." She took a careful step closer. Elias forced himself to stay still. "Do not think of me," she said. He nodded immediately. "Okay." The moment stretched. Then she gasped again, quieter this time, but no less intense. Her hand pressed against the barrier, fingers trembling. "You did it again," she whispered. "I didn't," Elias said in panic. "I swear I'm trying not to." Lyra let out a soft, breathless laugh that sounded half like relief and half like fear. "That is the problem, Elias Vance. You do not need to try." She straightened, forcing control back into her posture. "Human minds evolved in silence. You learned to contain yourselves because no one else could hear you. That containment created strength." She met his eyes directly now. "To us, that strength is overwhelming." Footsteps echoed outside the chamber. Lyra stiffened. "I should not be here," she said. "If the Council learns I came alone, then don't," Elias said quietly. "I don't want you getting hurt because of me." She studied him for a long moment, searching his thoughts without touching them. "That," she said softly, "is why I will come back." The barrier rose again, sealing the space between them. Lyra turned and left without another word. Elias sank back onto the bed, heart racing. For the first time since joining the fleet, he felt truly dangerous. Not because of weapons or orders, but because of something he had never learned to control. His thoughts. And no matter how hard he tried, one thought kept returning again and again. Lyrathi. The station began to change after Lyrathi visited Elias. At first, the signs were small. Telepaths working near the outer rings complained of headaches and fatigue. The constant mental background that usually felt smooth and shared became uneven, like a storm trying to break through a clear sky. Some said the noise felt louder than usual. Others said it felt emptier, as if something important was missing. The Council noticed. They gathered in their silent chamber, minds touching in tight formation, reviewing every report. The conclusion formed quickly and without debate. The human was the cause. Elias remained confined, unaware of the growing tension around him. His room stayed quiet, but his sleep did not. Dreams came heavy and sharp, filled with flashes of silver light and deep eyes watching him from the dark. Each time he woke, his heart raced, and his thoughts returned to Lyra before he could stop them. He tried everything he knew: meditation, counting, repeating old training drills in his mind. Nothing worked for long. He was human. His thoughts followed what mattered. And Lyra mattered. On the other side of the station, Lyra struggled to maintain control. She sat in a private chamber designed to shield her from the shared telepathic field. The isolation should have been calming. Instead, it felt empty, cold. Whenever Elias thought of her, the emptiness filled. At first, she resisted. She pushed the sensation away, grounding herself in the familiar presence of her people. But the relief never lasted. The moment Elias' focused thoughts touched her, the noise vanished again, replaced by warmth and clarity. It was addictive. She hated herself for that. Lyra was trained from birth to manage mental balance. She had spent her entire life supporting others, filtering pain, sharing strength. Needing someone else this deeply felt wrong, and yet she could not deny the truth. The human's mind did not take from her. It gave. Another report reached the council. A navigation cluster malfunctioned when its telepaths became overwhelmed by background noise. A defense array flickered offline for a full second before stabilizing. 1 second was enough. An unidentified fleet appeared at the edge of the system. They were not unknown enemies. They were opportunists, a species that had long feared the telepaths and waited for any sign of weakness. The station went to alert status. Telepaths rushed to their positions, linking minds to raise shields and activate long-range defenses. But something was wrong. The shared mental field was unstable. Thoughts collided instead of flowing. Pain spiked. Focus shattered. Lyra felt it instantly. She stood, breath catching as distress echoed through the mental network. Fear rose, sharp and uncontrolled. They were failing. Without thinking, she turned toward Elias' chamber. Security barriers blocked her path, but she pushed through with authority codes no one had expected her to use. Alarms flared, but she ignored them. Elias was sitting on the floor when the door slid open. He looked up in surprise. "Lyra," she stepped inside and sealed the door behind her. "There is an attack," she said, voice tight. "Our defenses are unstable." Elias stood at once. "Then let me help." The words felt strange but right. Lyra hesitated. "The council forbade any contact." "Then they can yell at me later," Elias said. "What do you need?" She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. "I need you to focus," he frowned. "That's what caused all this in the first place." "Yes," she said. "And it may also be what saves us." She lowered the barrier between them completely. The moment it vanished, Lyra inhaled sharply. Elias felt a pressure in his chest, not painful, just intense, like standing too close to something powerful. "Think of one thing," she said. "One purpose." Elias did not hesitate. He thought of Lyra standing alone under the weight of countless minds. He thought of protecting her from that weight. He thought of holding the line like he always had. The effect was immediate. Lyra gasped, but this time she did not fall. Her posture straightened, her breathing steadied. Her eyes widened as clarity flooded her senses. The noise vanished. Across the station, telepaths froze in surprise as the shared field stabilized. Pain eased. Focus returned. Shields flared back to full strength. "What is happening?" one of the council members demanded. But Lyra was already moving, linking herself to the defense network with Elias' focused presence anchoring her. The enemy fleet fired. The station's shields held. Lyra reached deeper, guided by Elias' steady intent. Together, they pushed outward, amplifying the telepathic defenses into something stronger than ever before. The attackers hesitated, confused by the sudden resistance. Elias felt it then, the connection. It was not words or images, it was understanding, trust. A shared purpose that did not need explanation. The enemy retreated within minutes. When the danger passed, the station fell into stunned silence. Lyra disconnected slowly, swaying on her feet. Elias caught her instinctively, steadying her before she could fall. For a brief moment, neither moved. Then the door burst open. Council members and security flooded the chamber, their mental presence sharp and alarmed. Several froze when they saw Lyra standing unharmed beside Elias. "What have you done?" one demanded. Lyra straightened, stepping away from Elias reluctantly. "We survived." "You violated direct orders," another said. "You exposed yourself to an uncontrolled mind." Lyra lifted her chin. "I chose clarity over fear." The council turned their attention to Elias. Their thoughts pressed in on him like a distant storm, but he held steady. "This human is the cause of the instability," one said, "and yet also its solution." "That makes him too dangerous," another replied. Elias clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for this." Lyra stepped forward. "Nor did we understand it. Humans evolved without telepathy. Their minds learned discipline through isolation. Elias' thoughts do not overwhelm because they are loud. They overwhelm because they are focused." Silence followed. Finally, the eldest council member spoke. "The bond is forming." Lyra's breath caught. "A permanent mental resonance," the elder continued. "If allowed to continue, it will change you, and possibly us all." Elias looked at Lyra. "What does that mean?" She met his gaze, fear, and something warmer tangled together. "It means I feel you even when you are not near, and it is getting stronger." The council made their decision quickly. Elias would remain confined. Lyra would be restricted from contact. Research teams would study the phenomenon from a distance. They separated them again, but it was already too late. In his chamber, Elias sat with his head in his hands, heart heavy. He tried not to think of Lyra. He failed. Across the station, Lyra lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind reaching toward a presence she could no longer touch. The bond did not fade, it deepened. And somewhere beyond the station, the galaxy had taken notice. The Council underestimated how deeply things had already changed. They believed separation would weaken the bond. Distance, silence, and isolation were tools they had used for centuries to control dangerous mental phenomena. What they did not understand was that this bond did not depend on proximity. It depended on choice. Elias felt it even in confinement. A steady presence at the edge of his awareness, not pressing, not demanding, just there. When he focused on it, warmth spread through his chest, easing the constant tension he had carried for years without realizing it. Lyra, he stopped fighting the thought. Instead, he learned to shape it. Years of human training came back to him, control under pressure, focus without panic. He practiced holding his thoughts like a steady flame instead of a wildfire. When he succeeded, the presence felt calmer, clearer. Across the station, Lyra noticed immediately. She was in a restricted chamber, surrounded by dampening fields designed to suppress telepathic amplification. They dulled her senses, but they could not erase the bond. When Elias focused calmly, the pain vanished. For the first time since the separation, Lyra slept peacefully. That frightened her more than the pain ever had. The Council continued their studies, but the data confused them. Telepaths closest to Elias' containment area reported improved stability rather than disruption. Emotional extremes softened, focus improved, some began requesting to work near the human. The requests were denied, fear still ruled the council chamber. They are becoming dependent, one council member insisted. This is how domination begins. Another countered, yet the human does not project control, there is no compulsion. Intent can change, the first replied. Power always does. The debate might have continued endlessly if not for the emergency signal that cut through their mental space like a blade. A distress call from Kael'thar's surface. The planet's core relay, the structure that stabilized the world's telepathic field, was failing. If it collapsed, billions of minds would be thrown into chaos. Many would not survive the shock. The council froze. That relay required absolute mental harmony to stabilize. Dozens of the strongest telepaths had already failed. Lyra knew the truth before anyone spoke it. They needed Elias. She stood before the council without waiting for permission. This is not a theory anymore, she said, voice steady despite the fear pounding through her. Our people are dying, you know what he can do. He is untested at this scale, the elder replied. So are we, Lyra said, and we are failing. Silence followed. Finally, the elder turned inward, touching the minds of the others. Reluctant agreement formed, thin and uneasy. Bring the human, the elder said, but if control is lost, we sever the bond immediately. Lyra bowed her head. He will not harm us. She hoped she was right. Elias was escorted under heavy guard, though the tension felt different now. Less hostile, more uncertain. When he entered the chamber housing the planetary relay, the pressure hit him instantly. Even without telepathy, he could feel it. The air vibrated. The hum of countless distressed minds bled through the structure itself. Lyra stood at the center of the relay platform, pale but unshaken. When she saw Elias, relief flickered across her face before she forced it down. You came, she said. You called, Elias replied simply. They stood facing each other across the platform, the relay pulsing weakly beneath their feet. Lyra took a breath. This will be more than before if you lose focus. I won't, Elias said. He did not say it with arrogance, just certainty. Lyra searched his face, then nodded. Then think of one thing. Elias closed his eyes. He thought of standing alone in space, responsible for lives that trusted him. He thought of holding the line when retreat was easier. He thought of Lyra not as something fragile to protect, but as someone standing beside him. The connection opened fully. The effect rippled outward like a wave. Lyra gasped, but she did not stagger. Her presence expanded, guided, and stabilized by Elias' focused intent. The relay brightened, its pulse steadying. Across the planet, telepaths cried out in shock as the noise vanished. The storm calmed. Minds aligned. The council watched in awe as the relay stabilized completely, but Elias did not pull away. He felt the connection deepen, not just with Lyra, but with the wider network. He felt fear, hope, exhaustion, and resilience woven together. It was overwhelming. Lyra sensed the strain instantly. "Elias," she said sharply, "you are reaching too far." He clenched his fists, grounding himself. "I can hold it." "You do not need to," she replied. "You are not alone in this." For the first time, Lyra did something unprecedented. She opened herself, not to the network, to Elias. She shared her memories. A childhood spent drowning in thoughts that were never her own. The constant responsibility. The loneliness hidden beneath reverence. Elias staggered, breath hitching as the weight of it hit him, but instead of collapsing, he absorbed it, understanding without judgment. In return, he shared himself, a human childhood of silence, fear faced without witnesses. Bonds formed by choice, not necessity. Love defined by action, not proximity. The exchange was gentle, balanced. The relay flared with brilliant light as harmony locked into place. When it ended, Elias dropped to one knee, exhausted but conscious. Lyra caught him, steadying him with surprising strength. The chamber was silent. The elder council member stepped forward slowly. This was not domination, they said. It was cooperation. Around them, other telepaths began to murmur, not aloud, but through softened mental waves filled with wonder rather than fear. "This changes everything," one whispered. "Yes," the elder agreed. "It does." The council reconvened within hours. This time, Elias was present. They no longer tried to shield their thoughts from him. Instead, they observed how his presence calmed the mental space rather than disturbing it. "The human mind," the elder said, "is not a threat. It is an anchor." Elias met their gaze. "We don't want to control you." "We never did," Lyra stepped forward. "Humans evolved strength because they had to face their thoughts alone. Telepaths evolved connection because they never were. Together, we are complete." The decision that followed reshaped galactic law. Humans were reclassified. Not as non-telepathic primitives, but as mental anchors, rare beings capable of stabilizing and strengthening telepathic networks through focus and empathy. Elias was offered a choice: return to Earth as a hero, or remain as a bridge between worlds. He did not hesitate. "I stay," he said. Lyra's breath caught, then she smiled fully for the first time. The bond no longer hurt. When Elias thought of her now, she did not gasp. She felt warmth, trust, belonging, and across the galaxy, whispers spread of a strange truth. That the quiet minds of humans, once dismissed as weak, had become the strongest force of all. Not because they could be heard, but because when they chose to care, the entire universe listened.